Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I am the host, T Money, and today I'm going to be doing a boxing recap on the fight weekend flop, is what I'm going to call it, because the headlines and everything got everybody's attention, but the fights did not live up to the hype, unfortunately. I'm going to just get it started with the fights taking place in. So the fight was going to be outside in Times Square, which was kind of like different for me. I never really seen a fight take place outside. I didn't know how the weather was going to be. Didn't know, what the conditions were going to be. Didn't know what the crowd was going to look like. It was a good idea starting off, but to me, how the fight looked, the crowd just didn't look involved or anything like that. So it definitely didn't really live up to the hype as far as it being in Times Square. Then I heard a lot of parts was blocked off, so there wasn't really like a like people could walk up and see the fight. They had fighters pulling up in cabs and different cars, which was cool. That was creative. I really wasn't feeling it. And, let's get straight to it. So starting off in the fights in Times Square, the first fight ended up being Teofimo Lopez versus Arnold Barboza Jr. I know they had some bad blood. I'm not sure if they were just trying to hype the fight up or what the case may be, but just starting off early in the first round, it was an early fill-out round. And it just looked like Tio just was the faster fighter. And then I seen both fighters really trying to set up a big shot early on, trying to kind of like set the tone for the fight. Like, we going to be in here, we going to fight. But, just from what I've seen in them early rounds, Tio just looked like he just outclassed Barboza way faster, way stronger. He was sharper. He was in rhythm. I like what I seen from Teofimo as far as coming in shape. He looked great for this fight. Barboza just looked like he was just outclassed, outmatched. He didn't really look like he should have been in there with Tio. Looked like they just threw an old man in there. How he was Barboza was kind of like robotic moving. Didn't really have no pop on his punches. Didn't really have no steam. Wasn't really throwing his body into his shots. And Tio just, was just clearly the more athletic fighter over Barboza. But I will say in round 6 that Barboza ended up catching Tio with a right hand, which ended up leaving a scar under his eye. And I think that Tio is kind of like a rhythm fighter. So when he gets in his rhythm, he kind of does this showboating stuff, the Ali shuffle and all this stuff. And Barboza cracked him like, hey, man, like you can't do all that in here, man. You got to still lock in. You know what I'm saying? I'm not no easy dub. Barboza bought the fight. So shout out to Barboza. And Tio did buckle a little bit. He did buckle a little bit after that big right hand Barboza landed. Around round 8 or 9, Tio really bought the heat. Really started throwing a lot of combinations towards Barboza. And Barboza just couldn't handle it. Tio was the way sharper fighter, looked, way better in shape than Barboza, was faster. Clearly had the speed advantage from round 1. I kind of noticed that. He was just levels ahead away from Barboza, and Teofimo Lopez walks away with the unanimous decision. Tio probably was the best fighter on this card, just overall, because the next fight ended up being Devin Haney versus Jose Ramirez was in the next fight. I kind of was really anxious to see how Devin was going to look when he got back in the ring. So starting out in the early rounds, Haney versus Ramirez, Devin did a lot of running around, man. I'm not going to lie. This is a super boring fight. Not a lot of throwing in the first round. This fight was just crazy boring. But Devin was moving smart. He was picking his shots on the ropes, not staying on the ropes. Looked like he was just scared to get hit. Looked like he got PTSD from that Ryan fight. Didn't want to get hit with any big shots or anything. It was just a lot of movement from him. I get it. You're trying to use your ring IQ and use your feet, but you got to engage eventually if you want to get the judges on your side. Ramirez was doing a pretty bad job at cutting off the ring from Devin. Ramirez, was just pushing forward, head down. Devin looked like he was just scared to get hit. I'm gonna just say it, be honest. He was doing a lot of wrapping up, like a lot of hard wrapping up, like he just got wobbled or something. But he was landing the better shots, the cleaner shots. Looked like he was out there in survival mode, like he just got rocked with a big shot. And it was early on in the fight, and I wanted to see more from Devin. This was a real disappointing fight. Not really the biggest Devin Haney fan, but I am cheering for him to have a good bounce back and a great career. He's a good young fighter, but just from what I've seen in this fight against Ramirez, I'm just not impressed. Devin's game plan was just kind of to wear Ramirez down, because that's pretty much what he was doing, just running around the ring a lot and doing cardio more, running and punching. It was just overall just a boring fight. Not a lot of punches being thrown, but the last 3 rounds wasn't no punches being thrown. Devin gave the shutout unanimous decision victory. Well deserved. He was doing a great job at staying off the ropes. He was doing a good job at hitting and not get hit. But for the most part, as far as like a fan, this was not an exciting fight. I was real disappointed in his performance from Devin. Hopefully he can figure it out, get it together, get over the Orion fight, and just come back stronger, because that performance was just terrible. And the next fight ended up being the main event, Rolly versus Ryan. Now, starting off in this fight, I really thought that Ryan was going to win this fight. Rolly walked away with the unanimous decision. And early on, it was a fill-out round. Of course, neither one of them was really engaged, overthrowing too much. But in the second round, Rolly dropped Ryan with a left hook. And, I thought it was going to be the other way around. I thought Ryan was going to drop Rolly with a left hook. Rolly chin been suspect the last couple of fights. But I have seen improvement from Rolly, keeping his hands up, using his jab, keeping his, feet moving. I have seen constant improvement from Rolly throughout the years after that Tank fight. And, Ryan got dropped. And from there, he just was scared, man. Rolly cracked him one good time. And Ryan, just refused to engage. I'm not sure if it was like a mental thing or he felt Rolly can really crack. But everybody know Rolly got power, if anything. And this was another fight. It was just a disappointment because I thought it was going to be more action. I thought it was going to be fireworks. Ryan coming back off the suspension 1 year. I'm not sure if he's going through some mental things or what the case may be, but this was just not a good fight. After the knockdown, Ryan looked a little too hesitant to really throw. He should have used his jab more. His jab was super effective. He had the length over Rolly, so that was effective. But, he just was using the jab and just moving. Pretty much didn't want to engage. And Rolly was Rolly really looked good in this fight. He was doing a good job at blocking Ryan left hook. The action slowed down for like the 6th round. Neither fighter really was letting their hands go. It seemed like Rolly was trying to catch Ryan with a left hook. And, Rolly was pretty much outboxing Ryan. The score was 107-102 on the scorecards. By the time it was the 11th round, Rolly ended up getting the upset victory. And this was another just fight disappointment. Other than T.O., the other 2 fights on this fight card just was a disappointment. I was really kind of upset because, you see the names, you see the young fighters, what they're capable of doing, and then they go out and just get these type of performances, and I just was really unhappy with this. So then Saturday in Saudi, we got the Canelo versus Skull fight, and, coming out, I was not interested in this fight because, for one, Canelo, you should be fighting Benavidez. Of course, we know you ducking. Everybody know you ducking. I'm not sure it's because what Benavidez hydrates up to. He about 6'1", 6'2", hydrate up to probably 200 pounds or something like that. I'm not sure why he ducking Benavidez, but starting out, I never heard of William Skull, however you pronounce his name. And starting out, Canelo was pretty much walking Skull down the whole fight. Canelo was pretty much waiting for Skull to make a mistake. He was landing a lot of body shots, looking for that body shot, left hook to the body, left hook up top to land the Skull. But Skull just refused to engage. Another fighter running around the ring, and it's a difference between when you run and when you fight off your back foot and you counter and you catch somebody and you stay in the pocket. These fighters was literally just running around the ring for cardio. It was a lot of early body work from Canelo. Not a lot of punches being thrown. Skull tried his best to just stay off the ropes, didn't want to get caught with anything big. This fight was pretty much just turning into a boring fight, with Skull just refusing to engage, running around. Canelo having to just chase him down and land a body shot, land something, because, this was just a bad performance from William Skull. I feel like he gave Canelo too much respect, and he was just scared of the, Canelo power, or Canelo landing his overhand right, or, Canelo does a good job at feinting to the body, getting you to clinch. Canelo does a great job feinting to the body, then getting you to clinch so he can land up top. So I did notice that's what Canelo was looking for, with the early body work and everything that was going on. With Skull running around so much, Canelo, his body language kind of said that he just, knew it was a boring fight. This fight, Canelo gave the shutout, ended up getting a unanimous decision victory. It was just way too much running in this fight. This was another fight just boring. And then Canelo complained about Skull, making the fight boring, but you picked him. So that's what happens when you pick people that people barely know. So that's just, it's just really disappointing weekend. So Inoue and Cardenas ended up being the next fight taking place on a Sunday on Top Rank. This ended up being the most exciting fight, and it came from featherweights, 2 small guys. And you expect some bigger fighters to throw more punches, but this fight is truly exciting. I really, really am a big fan of Inoue, the monster from Japan. Came all the way out here to Vegas, to put on the show. So starting off in those early rounds, Inoue came out just super aggressive, throwing a lot of combinations, throwing a lot of punches. It looked like he was just going for the knockout in the first round, but ended up getting caught in that second round and got knocked down. Now, this is what defines a true champion. Are you going to quit, or are you going to come back bounce back like a true champion, show your heart, your skills, and what you really put work in. It was good body work from both fighters. I like what I seen from both fighters. They wasn't brawling, but they was doing a great job at just picking their shots, fighting in the middle of the ring. Inoue was a harder puncher, it looked like. Cardenas, after he dropped Inoue, Inoue was doing a bad job at just throwing, not really keeping his hands up. He got caught early in the second round. Cardenas was trying to set that shot up for the rest of the night, that same left hook that he dropped Inoue with. But as he's trying to set up that same shot, he ended up leaving himself open. Inoue had just turned on the heat in the fourth round and just pushed Cardenas to the ropes. Just got the throwing. And I like what I seen. True resilience, true bounce back like a true champion from Inoue. This fight was amazing. And he just pretty much put together a lot of combinations. Cardenas was fighting back. He fought back. I'm not going to say like he just steamrolled him after he knocked him down, because Cardenas showed his real heart. He fought back. But Inoue ended up landing a big right hand, and by the end of that fifth round, it pushes Cardenas on the ropes. And as Cardenas gets pushed back on the ropes, he lands another left hook, but it kind of didn't phase Inoue. It looked like he just, pretty much ate that punch. And after that, Inoue just proved that he was just too much. Then eventually in the eighth round, he just started teeing off on Cardenas. And, Thomas Taylor had to jump in and just force the stoppage. And this ended up being the most exciting fight over the weekend. I'm really, really disappointed in some of these fights that took place. The boxing flop weekend. It was some good ideas, just poor execution. And the Inoue and Cardenas fight ended up being the most exciting fight over the weekend. So that will be all for my boxing recap. Make sure you all like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know what y'all thought about them fights. See y'all next time.